CTV News with Tara Nelson.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Dozens of people have been evacuated from a southwest apartment building tonight after a massive fire ripped through the complex this afternoon. Now take a look at this. This is the lightning strike that started that blaze. The lightning hit the roof of the apartment building around 3 p.m. and started a huge fire almost immediately. Bill McFarland joins us from the scene now this afternoon. And Bill, about an hour ago, we saw flames shooting out of that roof. What's the situation now?
Well, Tara, the fire is under control but not suppressed. So the firefighters are in the building. We just saw some come down the ladder. They're inside mopping up here, trying to make sure that that fire doesn't flare back up again. As you can see, the roof completely gone. And an hour ago, those flames were maybe 20 meters in the air, thick billows of black smoke coming out of the top of the building. Approximately 25 apartment units in the condo. Everybody out safe and sound. Pets safe as well, as far as we know here. Cold, raw day though. It's you can still see hail and slush on the ground. Residents obviously surprised by this, but as I said, luckily everybody got out safely and with lots of time. So here's what some of the residents had to say.
Heard the big lightning strike. I believe it was lightning that would have started it because it was no delay between the thunder and the lightning strike itself. Well, my dog is actually deaf, but she still jumped out of her skin when she heard the thunder.
Bob next door was knocking on my balcony door, so I thought, well, something must have happened. Then I heard firemen in the hallway, and I got out. I was told to get out.
Now, Ryan Howarth was the one who shot that incredible video that you saw right off the top of the show. Ryan, tell me what happened there.
Sure. I was just vacuuming the house actually and saw a couple lightning strikes that were pretty incredible. So I knew the storm was right above us. I decided to go into our guest bedroom and see if I could catch one on camera, and I did. And the one that I caught is the one that ignited the fire on the building. So, yeah.
So what did that look like for you as you were watching this?
Yeah. I mean, initially when I caught it on camera, it was just incredible. It's kind of that you have that awe feeling, and then about 20 minutes after I filmed it is when I started to see smoke. So that was pretty disturbing after that.
Yeah, it's got to be a sickening feeling. I know when I first arrived here, there was just a very little bit of smoke coming out of the top of the building, and before long, licks of flames, and shortly after that, of course, towering inferno. So, Tara, it's going to be a tough night here on Hemlock Crescent, but emergency services are taking care of all the affected people.
Indeed, Bill. Okay, thank you. Let's go to David now. As we saw, David, this fire was triggered by that lightning strike. Is that system still hovering over us, or is it moving on?
Well, the lightning and the thunder have moved on. We're still getting some rain out of this system. It's a fairly large system covering much of the southern half of the province. Earlier, there were severe thunderstorm watches issued for a large area of southeastern Alberta. Those watches have still been discontinued. And even though the watches are done and the lightning is gone, the rain continues to fall. We're seeing some heavy rain just to the north of Calgary and in the Drumheller area, northeast of the city. And some of that rain is now pushing back to the northwest and is going to make another pass through Calgary. In many areas of the city, the rain has all but stopped. However, this band of rain here just to the northwest is going to make its way through. So if you're headed out to the Folk Festival tonight, do take the umbrella. And of course, if there's any lightning in the area, take that umbrella down. You don't want to be sticking that up. But just to the northeast of the city is where we're seeing the lightning strikes now, east of Carstairs toward Drumheller. It is in that area where the lightning's happening, not so much in the Calgary region, but with the heavier rain coming in later on this evening, there's a possibility we might see more thunder and lightning. Can't be ruled out. 10 degrees right now. It is cool, and it will get all the way down to 6 degrees. Coolest night in a while. And then tomorrow we should get up back into the 20s with sunshine returning. Tara.
Thank you, David. There's been a terrible crash near Radium this afternoon. Several people have died after an explosion between a fuel tanker truck and two vehicles in BC's Columbia Valley area. The incident on Highway 93 near Kootenay National Park happened about 3 o'clock this afternoon. The driver of the truck managed to escape with his life, but no one in the other vehicles survived. Highway 93 near Olive Lake remains closed indefinitely. Two men who walked away from a spectacular ultralight plane crash near Airdrie yesterday are not only sharing their story, but some phenomenal video to go with it. A high-definition camera mounted on the plane shows the two men shortly after takeoff having some trouble gaining altitude. The pilot is forced to bounce the plane off the ground, over a fence and road until it crashes and flips. Both men remarkably walked away from this with minor injuries. Jefferson Humphreys joins us now. Jefferson, that pilot, Nathan Anderson, took you through the ordeal today.
Yeah, and he was very calm, as he seemed to be during that crash, as he just sat down, watched the footage of him flipping across the ground and over roads, and took me through it.
So we've just taken off and we've established a positive rate of climb. I'm sitting back, getting comfortable. We're climbing out. The ground's getting further and further away. And then there's a point right about now where I look left and right and I realize we're caught in a downdraft. And so now we're sinking. And right now I realize there's no option but to land the aircraft, but there's a fence coming up, so I put it down right about now. And then there's the fence. I let it touch down, and now I know I gotta hop it up over a fence, over the road and under the power line, and make sure the landing gear hits the hill on the other side first, which it does right there. It clips the hill, and that throws the aircraft into a roll. And it just slid to a stop upside down.
That is just incredible.
Yeah.
You spent the day with the whole family today, so what are they saying about this incident?
Well, yeah, Anderson just basically taking the day to spend with his wife and 3 boys, not surprising after the ordeal he was through, and also looking at the remnants of what was his pride and joy, his plane. Now, he and the family have watched the video of the ordeal a few times. Still very tough for his wife, Brianne, to watch.
It didn't scare me as much as I might have thought it would have. I felt very peaceful up there, calm. I knew what to do. I didn't feel afraid of death, although I knew it was a possibility. Yeah. We had to land quickly before you threw up, didn't we?
Yeah. So this is them obviously getting a look at the wreckage today. Wow. Look at that.
Yeah, unbelievable. They actually had to cut it in 3 pieces in order to get it back. So it actually didn't look quite that bad on the scene, but absolutely destroyed. And you know, he was making sure to keep his little boys away from the very sharp pieces, which goes to show just how dangerous this was for the 2 men that were in the plane when it went over. In fact, the gentleman sitting in the front was actually trapped as the nose was sort of shoved over a bit. But amazingly, if Anderson had not done a last pull-up in the moments before they crashed, apparently would have been a nose first into a small hill. For sure, the gentleman in the front would have died, the passenger, Curtis Christensen, and likely Anderson as well. So interesting, though, the 2 of them taking it all in stride. They're both sort of adventurers. Christensen, an adventure photographer. Anderson, the pilot, rock climbs, dives with sharks, and both say they have no intention of changing those things. But of course, once again, Brianne Anderson, obviously very affected by what she is seen in the video.
Sitting on the bed with him, realizing that he could have not been there with me that night, and seeing the footage of the actual hero cam and knowing that I could have been watching his death.
Yeah, but in fact, Anderson says he's considering buying his next plane, and his wife says she fully supports him. So
wow. This just goes to show what a good pilot he is, though, that he was able to make this maneuver.
Incredible maneuver. I mean, between a fence and a power line, bouncing off the ground, over a road, and he absolutely knew that if he hit the road, he'd be done. So yeah, incredible flying.
Wow. Thanks, Jefferson.
Welcome.
Norway has been rocked by violence today. A series of attacks has killed almost 24 people, including children. Explosions near downtown Oslo killed at least 7 people and injured 15. Then a short time later, there was a mass shooting at a youth camp. Police have arrested a Norwegian man in connection with the shooting at the camp and are now looking for more suspects. Scott Goldberg reports.
In the middle of the afternoon, normally peaceful Norway watched its capital, Oslo, ripped apart. At least 2 explosions tore through government buildings, including the Prime Minister's office. U.S. government sources say at least one of the explosions was a car bomb. And a short time later, a gunman opened fire at a political youth camp about 25 miles from Oslo, where it is reported there are many casualties. Police arrested the shooter and said he was linked to the bombing in Oslo. Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg was possibly a target, but he was not in his office at the time of the explosions. It's reported he was planning a visit to the youth camp this weekend. President Obama spoke at the White House.
It's a reminder that the entire international community has a stake in preventing this kind of terror from occurring.
Norwegian TV reported an unknown group called Helpers of the Global Jihad called the attacks just the beginning and said they're a response to Norwegian media printing cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad.
I think it's definitely too early to be specific about who's behind the attacks. it's fairly easy for groups to jump in and take credit for things that they had nothing to do with.
Norway also is a member of NATO and has been active in Afghanistan and Libya. And earlier this month, prosecutors filed charges against an Islamic cleric who allegedly threatened to kill Norwegian politicians.
We continue to learn more about the shooting at the camp. Apparently, many panicked teenagers tried to escape by swimming to the mainland. Police also say they have found undetonated explosives on the island. Late this afternoon, police say the 32-year-old Norwegian suspect is not linked to Islamist terrorism. 2 people died in a crash southeast of Calgary overnight. RCMP say a small car ran a stop sign at Highway 22X and secondary Highway 791. It was hit by a semi. The 2 people in the car were killed instantly. The truck driver wasn't hurt. The 2 victims, a 40-year-old woman and a 43-year-old man, were both from Coldstream, British Columbia. Dozens of people on board a Canadian tour bus were rushed to hospital last night following a huge crash with a semi-trailer in upstate New York. The driver of the semi died. The bus was hit from behind by the semi. There were several explosions and more than half of the 52 passengers were sent to hospital. At least 2 were critically injured. The passengers were Canadians headed to New York City for the weekend. An American soldier who was driving by helped pull people from the wreckage. The Canadian bus driver has been charged because his commercial license was suspended in New York State. Calgary West MP Rob Anders is no stranger to controversy, but last night he might have stepped a little too far over the line. Even the Prime Minister is upset after Anders hijacked a speech written by a federal minister to instead voice his support for a provincial Tory leadership candidate. Here's Kevin Green.
Rob Anders was supposed to deliver a speech about affordable housing, but right off the top he started to ad-lib.
We're going to play an interesting game here today. I'm going to deliver the speech, and in the odd place where the bureaucrats have inserted something I'm not entirely comfortable with saying, I'm going to put in my own phrase.
9 times in a 3.5-minute speech, Anders went off script, tossing in his support for a Tory leadership hopeful.
I'm supporting Morton. I'm supporting Morton. I'm supporting Morton.
The federal minister who wrote the speech Anders was supposed to deliver is disappointed with her fellow MP.
Well, it was inappropriate for him to mix his personal provincial politics with a federal announcement.
Political scientists say Anders' little game was misguided and wrong.
It's a question of, do you turn an official government event into a partisan political advertisement? And I think that was wrong.
One place you'd think they'd be happy with Anders' stunt is here at Ted Morton's headquarters, but they're not.
An inappropriate mix of government business and Alberta leadership politics. Wrong place, wrong time. It just shouldn't have happened.
Anders is well known for his controversial actions. In 2010, he advised troops in Afghanistan. In 2001, Anders tried to block Nelson Mandela's honorary Canadian citizenship.
Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House to propose this motion?
He's never had his hand slapped for speaking out, but that may be coming to an end. Political insiders tell CTV this likely marks the last time Anders will deliver a speech on behalf of the government. Kevin Green, CTV News, Calgary.
Even the Prime Minister's office is angry with Anders. Dimitri Soudis, the PM's Director of Communications, told CTV News provincial leadership race politics should not be raised during government announcements. This is the first time Anders has publicly had his hand slapped by the Prime Minister. What do you think should happen to MP Rob Anders for pushing his support for Ted Morton at a federal announcement? Let us know at ctvcalgary.ca. The Olympic skier who was dragged behind a Stampede party bus he drunkenly climbed onto sheepishly faced the media this afternoon. Our Glenn Campbell joins us now from the newsroom. And Glenn, what did Manuel Osborne-Parody have to say about this?
Tara, he spoke to us from the Foothills Hospital where he's still recovering from severe road rash to his backside. You'll remember the incident happened a week ago. Osborne-Parody fell from the bus, got caught on the hitch. He was dragged 80 meters. Osborne-Parody is a member of the Canadian Olympic ski team. He'll be facing confidential disciplinary action from the organization and multiple charges under Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. Osborne-Parody says he's embarrassed by the incident and has learned a very painful lesson.
I could have ended up dead if nobody really noticed, and it's one of those things where, I mean, especially being on the burn unit where this is a mild case compared to most people on that unit, that you really realize how fortunate you are, and you know, just just to be happy with the fact that you can recover from this and keep doing the sport that you love.
And Tara, there could be other ramifications. At least one company is reviewing its sponsorship agreement with Osborne Parody. He still plans to get back on skis and claims the accident won't delay that time frame, and he will be back training in a few weeks. He also plans to go back and volunteer with the Foothills Burn Unit.
All right, thank you for the update, Glenn. Let's go back to our top story now. A huge apartment fire in the southwest this afternoon. It is still not completely out. Dozens of residents have been evacuated. Now, this blaze was started by a lightning strike around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Crews are still battling that blaze, trying to hammer down the hot spots. Everyone inside the building did get out safely, but certainly a frightening afternoon for people, as you can see there, flames shooting at least 20, 30 feet into the air at one point as fire crews tried to tackle this 3-alarm blaze. Let's go back out to our Bill McFarland on the scene and get an update from the fire department. Bill.
Tara, I'm with Brian McCasey here from Calgary Fire, and he's going to tell us, Brian, where are we at now with the fire?
Well, thankfully, we've knocked down the fire now. We're in the process of overhaul, so we're searching for hidden fires, and we have interior crews trying to do their best in terms of looking for pets, rescuing those, salvaging property as much as possible.
And how many people are affected by this? 'Cause obviously, a fire is just a building, but the people are what we really care about here.
Indeed. Well, 25 units were directly affected at the building that was on fire. There are a number of adjacent buildings, too, where people have been evacuated. And so we've been very thankful to Calgary Transit Service, which was able to provide some buses, and they're being temporarily sheltered there. And we're going to do an assessment on both the primary building and the other ones and figure out how many people will have to be helped out. And right now, we're just going about the process, again, of overhaul and salvage.
And how about firefighters? Everybody still safe?
Yes, thankfully there were no injuries associated with this event. So people were very good about evacuating the building, making sure that they took heed of the alarm. Police were excellent in being able to go to the adjacent buildings, getting people out in a very timely fashion. And so great work on their part. So all we had to do when we arrived is focus on the fire.
Thank you, Brian. And again, thankfully everybody's safe. Neighbors deserve a lot of credit, too, for knocking on each other's doors and getting everybody out the way they did. Tara?
All right, Bill, thank you for the update. To other news now, Edmonton's mosquito situation has gone from bad to worse. There's more mosquitoes than ever before. Pest control crews say the city's light traps caught more than 1,100 mosquitoes over the past week. That's each trap. That's more than double the previous week. The city has now wrapped up a third round of spraying and could start a fourth this weekend.
We are up above our 20-year average, so we can say that, from those light traps, we're looking at numbers that are significantly higher than anything we've seen in the past decade and even 2 decades.
The mosquito population is expected to increase with rain in the forecast for Edmonton this weekend. Eastern Canada continues to struggle with an ongoing heat wave, although there is some relief in sight. Temperatures are gradually falling. However, a day after that record-setting blast of heat in Toronto, emergency teams are still treating people suffering from heat-related problems. Natalie Johnson reports.
The hot day begins here for John Cleash, Anna Kukalucha's home.
Come in.
She's lived here for decades and has stayed here.
I am old, 84 years old.
And with only a fan to keep her cool during this heat wave, paramedic John is here to make sure she's all right.
Because it's been very hot these last few days, and I wanted to make sure that you're doing okay.
John takes a look at the room where Anna sleeps. The temperature is 32.2 degrees.
So you can see it's just marginally cooler inside, but not by much.
Any hotter and it starts becoming too hot for Anna to reduce her own body temperature.
How are you managing during the heat today?
At Carol Batt's home, the 71-year-old's only way of beating the heat is
just perspire and read.
No air conditioning either. Her place is 31 degrees.
I see you've got drapes up to keep out the direct sunlight, so that's good.
A lot of times when paramedics come to check up on people, they find that they do have air conditioners, but even in this heat, they're not on, either because they're broken or they cost too much to run.
It's very expensive to run. That's the main reason why it's not on, just because of the cost?
Yeah. Sonny Folb's place is a sweltering 33.3. He's had a stroke, a heart attack, and his diabetes can be exacerbated by the heat.
Little pinch.
So John checks it for him. It's these little things that John says make a big difference in preventing heat-related emergencies.
They get to live in their own homes, they're independent with some assistance, and they're more comfortable living on their own.
And although it's hard to be comfortable in a heat wave, John's biggest concern is that they're safe.
And another day of record heat in the U.S., too, with the mercury soaring over the 100 mark as the heat wave moves east. The scorching weather is deadly. In Chicago, an 18-year-old died after he collapsed following a bike ride. Several elderly people have been found dead inside their homes. In New York City, municipal officials are asking people to conserve energy. There's already been several blackouts.
To use very little air conditioning. Actually, I'm going to step out so that it doesn't get too hot in there, so that, the system isn't overwhelmed again.
In Pittsburgh, the blazing sun trapped a roofer in melted tar for 2 hours before he was pried loose. Emergency crews sprayed his hands down with oil to remove the hot tar. Wow, that's terrible.
I'd
that's
prefer
hot.
this.
Yes.
I'd prefer this cold weather to that hot weather.
I would too, actually.
Yes. That's just kind of refreshing. You know, if you go out there with the right attitude.
Sure,
you know,
and it's going to be short-lived too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you go out there thinking it's freezing cold, you're going to be freezing cold. But if you go out there thinking it's a nice, refreshing, albeit wet kind of day, then there's nothing wrong with it. 9 degrees in Calgary, 8 degrees in Canmore. That is cool. I mean, the average high is 24, 25 degrees. We're nowhere close to that. But we will see higher temperatures as we get into the weekend, especially on Sunday. But tomorrow will be pretty nice, too. 14 at Claresholm, 19 at Lethbridge. Brooks is 18, 15 at Medicine Hat and Nanton, 10 at Crow's Nest Pass. Banff is 8, 10 degrees in Drumheller and Coach Hill and Heritage Park and the Zoo and Mackenzie Meadows. A little bit cooler at the airport where it's 9. Airdrie's also 9. It's 9 at DRC Ranch, 11 degrees at Strathmore. There's the precipitation still in the Calgary area. We had a lot of it this afternoon, then it tapered off, and now we're seeing some of it coming back. And it's the same rain we had before. It's swirling around in a bit of a circle here, and we're seeing some of it coming to us from the west through the back door, if you will. Now up here, north of Calgary and northeast, we're still seeing some lightning strikes and some heavier rainfall, particularly just between Irricana and Hanna, I suppose, is where we're seeing the heaviest rain at this point. But you can see some of it backed up against the foothills and is now swinging back into southwest Calgary, northwest Calgary getting some rain as well. And this will move through the city, but as the storm continues to swirl and swirl and swirl, all this will eventually move off to the northeast. That will leave us with a clearing sky overnight, and we'll have some sunshine tomorrow. The heaviest rain in this particular shot is just to the west of us along Highway 22X, Highway 1, and Highway 1A toward Cochrane. The Millerville area appears to be getting hit pretty hard by some rainfall right now. Now, as I mentioned, this system is going to swirl off to the northeast, and the low-pressure system that's generating all this is kind of separating from its fronts now. So this low goes north, the fronts move to the east, the sky clears out, we get sunshine tomorrow morning. We may get a few clouds coming through tomorrow afternoon, but in terms of precipitation, it looks like we're in for several dry days ahead, including the weekend. 6 degrees tomorrow morning, 21 tomorrow afternoon with maybe a few clouds, and Sunday will be considerably warmer, going up to 25 degrees. Staying in the 20s Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, though those temperatures are about 2 to 3 degrees below average, but still very pleasant weather. A quiz question. Speaking of heat, nowhere in Alberta has it ever reached 40 degrees Celsius. Is that true or false? We'll answer that at the end of the show. Put it up on our webpage at ctvcalgary.ca and Twitter, right there, the Twitter address, CTV David Spence. Tara.
This weekend, thousands of cancer survivors, supporters, and their families will take to the streets to raise money and awareness for the Shoppers Drug Mart Weekend to End Women's Cancers. Lee Elliott of the Alberta Cancer Foundation joins us now from Curry Barracks, where everything begins tomorrow. And Lee, this is a big commitment. This is no walk in the park.
It is a big commitment. The participants in the Weekend to End Women's Cancers make a commitment both to walk either 60K or 30K, and they also accept a challenge for fundraising, and that is a minimum of $2,000 for the 60K walk and $1,250 for the 30K walk. So it's both a physical challenge and a big fundraising challenge. And all of the participants have met or exceeded those goals, and they're all ready for an exciting morning tomorrow morning at the kickoff.
That's amazing. So Lee, who are these people that do the walk? Who are your participants?
You know, the participants are people who've been touched by cancer, people who have in some cases been devastated by cancer. And as you know, cancer can be kind of a lonely experience, and it can be frightening. This brings together so many people who are saying, you know what, something can be done about cancer, and we're here to do it. And so the energy in the crowd is amazing, because we get all these people who have been so personally touched and who are ready to take the steps necessary to do something really positive.
Now, Lee, I know we've had some questions here because this walk happens all over Canada in various cities. There used to be one in Edmonton, which I know was canceled last year. People are asking, will that one come back or will it alternate between Calgary and Edmonton? How will it work in Alberta from now on?
Yeah, what it'll be is that we've come back home here to Calgary where the event started 6 years ago, and we started with a provincial event, and then we were the first really area with a population the size of Alberta to try and do 2 events and to do it in 2 cities, and we really did that for 5 years very successfully, and it was wonderful. But we were seeing numbers fall a bit in Edmonton, and so we decided to come back to a provincial event. We very carefully weigh the cost benefit of our events, and our participants want to make sure that as many dollars as possible go directly to the cause. So for that reason, we brought the event back together in one provincial event, and it happens to be based here in Calgary. And the reason for that is that Calgary had a few more participants as the years went on and was raising a bit more money, so we knew that a greater number of participants were in this area.
Right.
So we'll continue to have a provincial event that is based here in Calgary.
Okay, well, super. It is a great weekend. Thank you, Lee. We appreciate your time tonight. It'll be a busy weekend.
It will be. Thank you, Tara.
Now, there are a number of places around the city that you can cheer on walkers. On Saturday, the Tom Baker Cancer Center, as you can see there, also a green space on Richmond Road. There's others on Sunday. If you want more information or you want to learn more about the walk, you can go to our website, ctvcalgary.ca or endcancer.ca. In yesterday's web poll, we asked what you think about the feds setting up an oil sands monitoring system. 50% of people think Ottawa should let the province handle it. Almost 1,700 people weighed in. Ottawa has pledged an additional $50 million to help people in the drought-ravaged Horn of Africa. CTV's Robert Fife reports.
Children are near death from starvation, desperately in need of help. This child barely capable of moving her eyelids.
The mothers and the children. I'm not sure many of them will be alive in the next week or 2.
400,000 people have come to this refugee camp in eastern Kenya, most from Somalia, where International Development Minister Bev Oda visited today. Every day, 1,500 more arrive, escaping civil war as well as famine. This woman walked almost a month with her 4 children. 3 died from hunger on the way.
This is the only survivor.
This woman gave birth on the trek to the Dadaab camp with no food and little water.
So she walked when she was pregnant. Yeah. And she gave her birth 14 days ago. And she kept walking.
Even here, there's a chronic shortage of food and water as aid agencies struggle to cope. Some are eating for the first time in days. Thanks to Canadian aid dollars, some $22 million already provided. And today, Oda announced many millions of dollars more.
That we are contributing $50 million to helping these victims, to helping them move on and recover from the starvation and malnutrition.
To encourage Canadians to help fight the famine, the government will match individual donations dollar for dollar.
Please continue and be with us to save lives.
All across the Horn of Africa, conditions are worsening and famine is spreading. The United Nations is calling for crisis talks to confront this unfolding disaster. Robert Fife, CTV News, Ottawa.